Nation, I'm Sam here again from A Bear and a Bee Books, and today I wanted to go over with you my favorite fiction reads of 2017. So far I've done my favorite short story collections, my favorite nonfiction, my favorite YA fiction. I have left to do my favorite quick reads, which will be coming to you shortly. Today I have 7 books to share with you. They're not in any particular order, and again, these are just books that I read and enjoyed for the first time this year. The first book I'd like to talk about is Sisters by a River, and this is by Barbara Comyns. And the reason I had to select this one, well, the main reason, is because I really found my love for modern classics this past year. I was into classics. I really enjoyed some of them back when I was in school, but since then I had kind of gotten away from them. And then this year I started reading more modern classics and I just simply fell in love. This was the first one I read last year and has really gotten me into the genre. This book called to me initially because, number one, the cover art is absolutely beautiful. This is a Virago modern classic. There are 3 books that they redid so far by this author and they're all absolutely beautiful. I picked up this one specifically because I actually grew up by a river. I'm from Massachusetts originally and grew up in a small New England town until I was 7 years old. So I do have those memories of growing up by the river, and so this book definitely called to me. I did find it really interesting though, the differences that I experienced here in a New England town versus this English village. So I heard recently, I believe it was up until the 60s, that many English villages remained unchanged, and I can definitely appreciate that. Being from New England, we do have, of course, many historical sites, especially in the Boston area. I now live in Florida, and in Florida, you're more likely to come across an alligator than you are to come across a historical building. There are a few here and they're quite beautiful. In the Tampa Bay area, there is the Tampa Theater, which my husband and I love, and we go every year to see It's a Wonderful Life for the holidays. This past year it was under renovation, but that just shows that the area is willing to invest in that historical building, and it really is a piece of art. Oh, also this one is said to be loosely based on the author's real life, so I always find books like that interesting because then it's kind of like a secret of the author about how much is true and how much is fiction. The next book I would like to talk about is The Blank Wall by Elizabeth Sanxay-Holding, and I read 2 of her books this year, so she was probably one of my favorite authors of 2017. I don't read a lot of mystery, but I found I really loved her writing style. This is, I would say, in the modern classic era as well. This particular book called to me so much because it is more about what the characters are going through and you start to feel for them versus the crime, and there's not very much gruesomeness or grittiness to it. It's more about how what happened affects the characters in the novel, and that's one reason I really love this. You know, it touched on a mother's love for her daughter and a mother trying to hold a house together while her husband was away at war, and I thought all of those references were really beautiful. This, of course, is from the Persephone collection. The Persephone books are just absolutely beautiful. They have end pages that relate to the time the books were printed, and they're typically also forgotten fabrics. Persephone actually publishes mostly women, though they do have a few male authors now, but it's typically women authors that they feel haven't been published enough over the years, and they bring back their beautiful works. The next one I wanted to talk about is Jane Austen's Persuasion, and this is my Dover Thrift Edition. I did receive a beautiful new Word Cloud Classics for Christmas. I'm really excited to have that full matching collection, but this, I decided to pick this one up first. Number one, it's one of the smaller of her works, and number 2, I'm probably a little bit older than the average booktube age, and I decided that I wanted to start with this one because Anne as a heroine is a little bit older, and I thought that I would relate with her story a little bit better. I will say first off, because of the time period, I had to give a little bit of allowances for some of the things in the book, but I really did love it. I think Anne is a wonderful heroine. I find her to be very strong and to be a very solid person. And of course, Jane Austen is known for her happy endings, and I thought this one also did not disappoint. This book is a lot to do with Persuasion, right? Her titles are also always so telling, but I found that this book had a lot to do with learning who you are, and had a lot to do with knowing what your happiness is. Of course, back then there were different rules for women and different things that society told you had to do, but I felt that this was a beautiful example of trying to find your own way to happiness. The next book I would like to talk about is Frome by Edith Wharton, and this was the first Wharton I've read. I enjoyed this one. This book plays a lot on love and loss, and you find yourself while you're reading, you can see where the story is going, but I felt compelled to carry on. The idea of hope is so infectious. You know, it is a kind of a faded ending, but I thought it was just a really intriguing story about looking at loneliness and looking at faded circumstances. And many of us these days play the what if game. This book kind of opens that up as well. So overall, I really enjoyed this. It's a quicker read. My edition's only 150 pages, so it shouldn't take too long. I would say if you enjoy classics and you get on with like a bleak setting, because this is set mostly in winter, I would say to definitely give this one a try. The next book I would like to talk about is Angela Thirkell's High Rising, and this for me had to be on the list. This was one of those books. Have you ever been in the mood to read something and you start looking on BookTube and you start looking on Goodreads and you start shopping around and you're trying to find exactly what you want and it just doesn't seem to be on your shelves, and then you find it? And for me, that was this book. I wanted something warm, I wanted something comforting, I wanted something centering around the Christmas or winter holidays, and I wanted something set in a quaint, small, either English or New England town, and this was exactly that. I love this book. I read it at the perfect time. If you like modern classics, if you like books that take place in small towns or small villages, if you like looking at the simple things in life, from meddling maids or what you have to do to support your family, or if you like children getting up to no good, I highly recommend, and I thoroughly enjoyed this read. The next book I would like to talk about is One Fine Day, and this is by Mollie Panter-Downes. I absolutely love this book, and I'm so sad because I believe it's the only fictional book she read. She does have, I believe, 2 selections available from Persephone that were her letters around the time of the war, but I just love this book. It looks at what happens to a family after the war is over, and it's set just after World War II, and it follows mostly the mother, but you do get some insights from the father and the daughter as well. And it just looks at these bigger homes and manor homes after the war was over, and they started to find that they needed to sell them to get by, to kind of evolve with society. And it just shows this mother trying to fit in this new world with her family. It definitely shines on what's really important and reminds us to not let that everyday drudgery cloud that. I just found this writing to be so beautiful. I actually read a passage out loud. It was just absolutely breathtaking, and I definitely hope to reread this one day. And the last book I would like to mention, it's got some gold foiling on the cover, so it's a little hard. There we are. This is Song of the Sea Maid by Rebecca Mascull. Okay, first of all, anything that has anything to do with mermaids, I will eventually pick up. I've always loved the myths and legends associated with mermaids, so when I saw this cover and how beautiful this book was, I had to pick this one up. Secondly, this book has a lot to do with nature, and anything that has to do with that I typically also enjoy. There's some chapters in here that take place in these caves. The description that the author uses to describe those caves was just just spot on for me. When I read, I really gravitate to a well done setting, and I really appreciated that here. It was just beautiful. It's a historical fiction about a woman who wants to study science. She really wants to be a naturalist. She's fascinated with the natural world and with everything that's within it. At the time that, of course, this story takes place, that wasn't something that women typically did, and it's how she goes ahead and she seeks her dreams anyway. She started out as an orphan. Towards the end of the book, it shows you how far she's come. And this setting, like I said earlier, was just absolutely done beautifully, and I highly recommend if you enjoy historical fiction or the natural world. Well, those were my top 7 fiction reads of 2017. I'm so excited to see which ones will make my list this coming year. If you've read any of these books, or you have a book like them that you think I would enjoy, please feel free to let me know down below in the comments. Please go ahead and click the subscribe. And also, I'll include my Goodreads link down below. Feel free to friend me, and my Twitter link as well. So thanks so much for being here with me today. Farewell for now. Bye-bye.